Chapter 6. Sudden Danger. At Nancy's cry of distress, a number of people turned around, but no one tried to stop the fleeing thief. He was soon out of sight. A policeman appeared on the scene and questioned Nancy about the purse snatcher. "His car's over there," she exclaimed, pointing, "and the woman with him." Nancy stopped speaking abruptly. "Why, it's gone!" She felt sick over the turn of events. "Suppose you tell me the whole story," the policeman said kindly. Nancy did not wish to disclose the details of her recent adventure and its connection with the current mystery. She stated simply, "A woman and a man followed me here in a gray sedan. I believe he was the same one who snatched my purse. He's about 6 feet tall, sandy-haired, and very thin. The woman is about 35, average height, and rather heavy. She has light brown hair and hazel eyes." Nancy paused, then added, "I'd say the man is older than she is. They both wore navy blue suits." "Did you have much money with you?" "Practically none. There were a few personal articles, though, that I hate to lose." As Nancy was talking to the policeman, Ned Nickerson, a handsome, athletic young man, came through the group. "Hello, Nancy," he greeted her anxiously. "What happened?" "I'll tell you all about it in a minute," she promised. Nancy thanked the officer for his help. Then she and Ned went to a quiet corner of the waiting room where they could talk. "Now tell me everything," he insisted. When Nancy finished relating her afternoon adventures, Ned asked, "Do you have any idea what they are after?" "This." From her dress pocket, she removed a copy of Tomlin Smith's map and showed it to him. "When I was in the store's telephone booth, I transferred my money and this paper from my handbag to my pocket." Ned studied the crude drawing. "It looks like a lesson in geography. Half a lesson at that." "That's just what it is. Half a map showing where a treasure is buried." "Belonging to Captain Kidd?" "I know it may sound fantastic, but this is a clue to an inheritance buried on some Atlantic island," Nancy declared. Next, she told him the entire story of Rocky Edge, its eccentric owners, and the vanishing man in the music studio. Ned grinned. "Guess I won't be seeing much of you for a while, with 2 mysteries to solve. Especially when you're off to some lonely island." Then, with a wide grin, he added, "Unless we go sailing for gold together." The two laughed, and Ned glanced at his watch. If they were to reach Emerson College before dinner time, they must leave at once. "Do you mind delaying a few minutes longer while I buy a purse and a few things I must replace?" Nancy asked. "Give you 15 minutes, he conceded. She completed her shopping. Then they started off in Nancy's car. At the fraternity house, she was greeted by Mrs. Haynes, the house mother, and several young women. All of them had been invited to spend the night. As Nancy started upstairs to shower and dress for the dance, someone called out, "Telephone for Nancy Drew." "For me?" she asked in surprise, retracing her steps. "Maybe it's Dad." The caller proved to be Ellen Smith, who spoke in an agitated voice. "Nancy, I'm sorry to bother you," she apologized. "It's about Mrs. Chatham. She came to see me at college today and absolutely insists that I give her my decision about the position in 3 days. What shall I tell her?" "I'll talk to Mrs. Chatham tomorrow," Nancy promised. "Don't do anything until I see you." "I really can't afford to turn down the job." "I understand," Nancy assured her. "Don't worry about it, Ellen. If it seems unwise for you to take the position, I'll try to find another one for you." "Oh, I knew you'd think of something," the other girl said gratefully. "You're a darling." After Ellen had hung up, Nancy decided to phone her home and tell her father what had happened. Hannah Gruen answered and said Mr. Drew was not there. "I'm so glad you called," the housekeeper said, her voice unsteady. "What's wrong? You sound upset." "About half an hour ago, a man phoned. He didn't give his name, but he had the most unpleasant voice." "What did he say?" "Lay off the Tomlin matter, or you'll be sorry." Those were his exact words. "Oh, Nancy, that warning was meant for you. And to think that I suggested you take an interest in the Smiths' problems." After a somewhat lengthy conversation, Nancy convinced the housekeeper that there was no immediate cause for alarm. She did not mention the incident at the Hamilton bus station, knowing it would only add to Mrs. Gruen's uneasiness. Later, as Nancy was dressing, she speculated as to who the strange caller might have been. Spike Doty or the purse snatcher? Finally, she decided to forget both for the evening. When Nancy descended the stairs in her striking white dress, she saw Ned's face light up with admiration. "Wow!" he exclaimed with a smile. "May I have the honor?" "You may," Nancy replied. The couple linked arms and strolled into the main dining room, which was attractively decorated in the college's colors of purple and orange. Several of Ned's classmates gave Nancy an admiring glance and an exaggerated nod of approval to her escort. After dinner, there was an interfraternity dance in the gymnasium. Nancy thoroughly enjoyed herself. During an intermission, Nancy noticed one of Ned's fraternity brothers walking toward them. "I don't know him very well," Ned whispered. "He came to Emerson just this year. His name is Bill Tomlin." "Tomlin?" Nancy asked. "Why, yes. Do you know him?" "I didn't tell you, Ned, but the old sea captain had that same last name. They're probably not even distantly related, but I must check every possible clue." Bill Tomlin, pleasant and humorous, asked to dance with her. As they moved across the floor, she casually inquired if any member of his family had followed the sea. "My grandfather's brother was a sea captain," he replied. "He had twin sons, and I understand one of them was a sea captain. I don't know what became of the other brother." Nancy tried not to show her mounting excitement. She asked, "Do you know if the captain is still living, and where he might be found?" Before her dance partner could reply, the music stopped abruptly. The bass drum thumped loudly, and the chairman of the dance committee, Jeff Garwin, rose to speak. "Your attention, please," he said over the microphone. "I have an important announcement to make. The next event on our program is the presentation of a pantomime produced by members of the Emerson College Dramatic Club. As you all know, it is our custom each year to select an attractive young lady to preside over the event. She will wear the festival robe and crown. After careful consideration by a committee of faculty and students, a choice has been made." A hush fell over the audience as the announcer paused a long moment. "Will Miss Nancy Drew please come to the stage?" he said, smiling down at the girl. The students clapped and whistled. Though startled, Nancy responded with poise and mounted the improvised stage. She donned a white robe, a golden paper crown, and accepted the seat of honor. Lights were dimmed and the presentation of the pantomime began. It was impossible to tell who the players were, because they all wore black masks. Nancy thought she could identify Ned as a black demon, but before she could be sure, all the lights were suddenly extinguished. "Hey, what's the big idea?" masculine voices called. "Is this part of the show?" After several minutes of confusion, the lights were turned on. "I'm sorry for the interruption," the MC said in apology. "Someone thought he'd play a practical joke, I guess." "And steal the queen?" Bill Tomlin added, gazing toward the stage. The draped chair which Nancy had occupied was vacant. "Where is she?" Ned demanded, stepping forward in alarm and removing his mask. The announcer's voice was unsteady as he spoke. "No doubt Nancy Drew has stepped outside for a breath of air." The explanation seemed to satisfy the audience, but Bill and Ned realized that Jeff did not believe this himself. The three hurried outside and began a search for the missing girl. But by now Nancy was several miles away, a captive in a gray car which raced over the countryside. When the lights had been extinguished during the pantomime, a masked man, whom Nancy assumed to be one of the players, had glided to her side. "Come with me," he had commanded. Thinking that it was part of the show, Nancy had obeyed. No sooner had she reached the hall than a woman appeared from behind a screen of palms. The pair were the same couple who had trailed her to Hamilton and snatched her handbag. They gagged Nancy and hustled her into the rear of a waiting car. The man jumped into the driver's seat. "Don't make a move or try to escape," he rasped as the woman removed the gag. "Just hand over the map and you won't be harmed." Nancy squirmed sideways on the car seat, peering at the woman who gripped her arm. "So it was you who switched off the lights," Nancy remarked. "Just hand over that map or I'll take it from you," the woman said. "I have no map." "Don't try to pull anything on us. You thought you were so clever removing it from your handbag this afternoon. Where is it?" "I'm not in the habit of carrying maps in party dresses," Nancy countered. "All right, don't tell us," the woman snapped. "But understand this. You're going to be our prisoner until we get it." The threat filled Nancy with despair. She did not doubt the couple's intentions. If they should contact her father, he would turn over his copy of the map to ensure her release. Nancy set her jaw grimly. She must think of some way out of this situation. End of chapter 6.